like one moment of success I had here. I feel good about it.
That's telling someone else about like
When you go from
industry, I think
video games to photography, exactly what it is to get it done. It's always the hard part. You want to kind of motivate more people. No, I don't like that. I don't like it. These have really good mics.
oh yeah? That's not the first time I've heard of that. I mean, it doesn't pretty much set up. It works.
Yeah, actually they do. I've had good luck with them since the days of Wonderful in San Francisco. They were really good. First, the speaker is good, the sound is good on it. And you don't think that way.
Well, especially anything like where our speakers. I'm an author now. I'm sitting here beside my Ex-Localization editor for Nintendo. Very briefly. The Warlock Holmes series. Basically, just go very sure. Okay. I could be sarcastic. Help me get the word out.
And then I have yeah, because he's still got a review. Is that big hair one right there?
Yeah, I'm the third one.
He's got a review. What's it called? Okay, so let's say he's finished reading and he's the only one. He has more time than I do.
We're giving you reading assignments.
Really? No. Awesome.
Sorry.
No. I love reading books. So please, just throw it at me.
Oh, thank God there's another book person here.
Name's Robbie, by the way.
I'm Dave.
Okay, the next person's that. She's a librarian.
Oh, okay.
Mike is the nerdy guy. That's our friend Dan. But don't wait back and Mike will writes.
Oh, I rescind it.
He's got ratings.
It does happen.
Yes.
Not that I know of. I don't think we used to a lot. So, it's up to us to. If you want, I will moderate because I have a feeling you guys have a lot more content.
Testing. You guys hear me?
Are we on? We're on.
Oh, Mike's hit.
We got to see that mic.
We'll share.
All right, we'll share.
Hello? I think you're right here.
Hello?
I think they can hear us fine.
Yeah.
Or we can hold the mic like a fancy.
That's true. It doesn't feel cool.
Yes. I am important because I got
Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to start. There's no moderator or anything, so we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves a little bit.
Let me get this on first, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Sorry about being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, stop being a pain in the ass. Jeez.
Just mind blocking
Someone
mine.
has to have that role.
Yes.
Oh,
It's gotta be there.
Okay.
So, are we here?
All right, so let's get this thing started. So I'm Eric Wile. I work for Sony Online when they were still relevant. Sorry, I have to use that reference. So I spent some time in the industry working on EverQuest, Star Wars, Galaxies, PlanetSide, and pretty much anything that Sony released during certain years. So now I'm kind of still in the game industry, but I'm more tabletop now than I am video game. So if that means anything, I guess. There you go. So my name is James Writing. I'm a senior level designer at Sony Santa Monica, currently working on God of War. I've been in the industry for almost 10 years, working on a bunch of small studios first. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, a Cartoon Network game. This is my third job, and I really don't have any new intel for you guys about God of War, but I'm really just here to talk about kind of the industry and my experience.
My name's Gabe Denning. Most famous as an author of the Warlock Holmes series, but for 4 years, 4 years? No, for 4 months, I was a localization editor at Nintendo, and I honestly think I've been invited here as the cautionary tale about the video game industry and sort of its pitfalls. I can tell you I had one of the most
grinds you up.
oh, and spits you out in 4 months' time. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that lasted 5 years.
Oh, that's like a veteran. You know, at Nintendo, you did have a lot of people
Nintendo
who
and
had a career.
Sega, but then Sega got spit out as well.
It's a fun industry, and just know it can be a little brutal. So that's why I'm
Not
here.
little, it's a lot. If you work in the art department, it's a lot. You know, for some people, it's a little if you're in production. But if you're in the art department, it's a lot.
And that's what you did, art?
Yeah, animation, tiles, background. Back when Sega was around, I used to do. You were a jack of all trades and good at none. So you ended up doing the tiles for the 8-bit backgrounds, and then one day you have to clean up animations. The next day you got to work on, okay, we're going to dump all these dinosaurs on you, but then you got to clean up Jurassic World the next day. And then it's like all of a sudden, can you do this for us for this game real quickly? This ain't on my contract. Oh, please. Okay. Stuff like that. I'm Russ Barba. I work in video games, on animation, you just heard. And I do photography, and I'm basically a jack of all trades and good for art for the most part. I keep jumping around. I never stay consistent. But yeah, that's what it is. That's all excited nodding their head. Just do all the expertise with bob heads, and then someone shakes it, so then they all move like this.
So it sounds like all 4 of us are big house then.
We're in a prison?
Well, yeah, so yeah, did you guys start indie or?
No, it wasn't indie. It was, I would say, it was like AA. We would make, kids game within a year. So we did 2 years at Papaya Studios. We made 3 games. So it was 36 people, kind of a 2 game at a time type of scenario. So it wasn't indie, but it wasn't.
But it wasn't huge.
And I can't say that about Sony Online.
Yeah.
Not even close. That was AAA.
Yeah.
Large scale. I mean, considering the first game, EverQuest hit 600,000 players. So that's nothing to see that.
No, that's not small.
No, not back then, especially those dial-ups.
Yeah. Okay, anybody out there in the industry, or are you all wanting to be in the industry? Hands up, who wants to work on video games?
Raise your hand, Robbie. That was your high school thing.
Aww.
I had to fight help with his high school papers.
Oh, cool.
And then tell him everything he knew was wrong.
Well, I mean, what do we want to tell these guys about the industry? There's...
Find another job. Like
Well, you know something? I do think that is one of the things. I came from one industry and into another industry where you better be working there because you love it. Like, don't expect to get rich and famous.
Yes. So I would definitely say that having worked on small games and big games, it is something that you only want to get into if you really love to do it, because you're not going to get super rich, but it will also be very rewarding, because I remember when I shipped my first game and I went to the store and I bought it myself because I worked at GameStop and I had always wanted to ship the game. It was a very memorable moment. I get to meet fans who've played games that I worked on, or even games that I never thought anyone would play, like Punch Time Explosion. I've met people who enjoy that game, but it's definitely a lot of work. It's not come easy. It's not easy to get into. But you will meet probably a lot of talented people. You will meet some untalented people. Like every job has people who aren't good at them.
Yeah.
But you definitely have to have a passion for it. It's not.
Passion carries you through the tough times. That's the big thing. You're going to go, oh God, I hate this. I'm not going to make my milestone. But then you go, I really enjoy this job, so I've got to do it. I can't let my team down. And it's the passion that pushes you forward. Not the, I'm getting a paycheck at the end of the week. That's what you do at GameStop.
And you know, James touched on it. Like I only briefly worked on games. I have one video game title to my credit. You ready for it? Style Savvy. Almost. It was a
games.
Nintendo game where you start up a boutique, a fashion boutique. And what's funny is it's actually a decent game. All of us were like walked in, we got hired, Nintendo hired like 10 new people, we're like, woo, we're finally in! 4 months before the world market crashed and they fired the entire department. And we did this one game, Style Savvy, and it was so funny because I think all 10 of us were like, yes, we're in! We're working on what? But it wound up being kind of a charming game. It surprised a bunch of us. And I still every now and then, like, I have that sense of ownership when I see it in a GameStop or around, or someone like mentions it online. I'm like, man, I can tell you stories about Style Savvy. And that is, for me, I think the reason I keep gravitating back towards these geeky and creative jobs is because it feels so good to see your stuff out there in the world. Like the stuff you love and you sort of poured your heart into. When you meet people who like it, it feels so good.
Well, I think the big thing with it too, it goes back to, is for a while there, it went through the flea market phase and borderline dumpster, and then next thing you see, people are actually worshiping it now. Wow. I hated working on that game.
Right.
My life was put into it. It made me cry. Yeah. You're going, all of a sudden people are like, that's a really good game, I enjoyed it. I remember hating moments of it. But people enjoy it, and it made them feel good, and I think that's the important part sometimes.
I had a demoralizing day with books. Was working on book 3, banging my head against it, not making much progress, and I went to Barnes & Noble to pick something up, like get a gift. And I walked in and I found my book sitting out front on the staff picks next to Princess Bride and Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh,
and I just like, yeah, like had to sit down for a minute, just like, oh, you know, like, thank you somebody. You know? And it's those feelings. Like if you're gonna work in these creative industries, that's why. You know, yeah, so anybody with stars in their eyes and fame and fortune, I don't know if we can help you. But anybody who just wants that feeling of like loving geek stuff and making geek stuff for other geeks to love, yeah, you're in the right room.
And the funny part is, there's stuff that you're going to make that people are going to hate too, and you got to deal with that too. You know, there's going to be that shovelware you're going to be assigned to, like Barbie's underwear clothes, or Barbie's My Little Pony. You're going to sit there and go, why am I working on this? And you're assigned to it. You're going to have to sift through it. But then you're going to get one day go, hey, you get to work on Jurassic Park. Sweet.
I don't know, I just feel like I've been talking a lot compared to the amount of time I've actually spent in the industry.
The funny part is you said you weren't going to be the one to talk a lot.
I know, why I thought not, because you guys actually have jobs.
We seem to be a loquacious one.
Yeah, I always have been. So, well, how about we play this game? How do we get in?
You want to go first?
So I went to the Art Institute in San Francisco for game art design. It was 14 years ago, so everything has changed. YouTube has changed, so now you can learn a ton of things you can do on the internet. Engines, game engines, Unity, Unreal Tournament, all that stuff is available. But the good thing about going to school is that you meet people and you also kind of like get forced to do things you don't want to do. And you learn how to like do things well that you're not necessarily always passionate about. And so I graduated, and 6 months later I got a job in Los Angeles at a small studio called Meteor Games. And this was during the MMO crave, and everyone was trying to make MMOs. So I was a level designer, making this big open world with a small studio that didn't really know what they were doing. So they hired a bunch of kids out of school, me included, and all of us were kind of flailing trying to make this game that eventually went nowhere. So a year and a half later they closed, and through my connections at that job, I landed my second job at Papaya, where I shipped the 3 small kids games in 2 years until that studio closed. And then I got my job at Sony because now I had shipped titles and I've been in the industry for a while. So rocky road, but you know, persevere. That's my industry story.
I guess I'll go ahead and do mine. Mine is probably one of the most unique stories. When I first had the passion to want to be in the industry. I was very young. We're talking Atari days, right? And I moved out to San Diego to help my sister move, and I was applying for everything. Cox, Rockstar, Midway Games. I mean, I played for everyone, and then all of a sudden, you know, I heard that Sony Online was hiring. And I was like, well, it wasn't Sony at the time, it was still Varian. And I applied, and the job I applied for, ironically, was tech support. Because it's like, okay, I just want to get in, and I want to become an IT engineer. That was like my goal, right? So I get in, I basically, well, actually I should say that it wasn't immediately get in. So I had an interview. They did call me and they liked my resume or whatever. And they gave me this like 20-page test. They're like, okay, so we need you to answer these questions. And some of it was about just IT stuff, right? And the other was stuff about, I had no clue about like, what is DirectX? What the hell is this? I don't use this in IT. What the hell are you talking about? So they liked the interview, and then 6 months later, no, it was 8 months later, they called me back like, hey, you got the job, can you start? I'm like, I'm back in Colorado, but I didn't want to say that. But I was like, yeah, I can be there tomorrow. So I get out there and I work my way in the trenches. I mean, I did tech support, I really hated it. It convinced me that I did not want to be in that department. So I finally started applying for projects that came up. So they had this thing where like, hey, we're doing this in-game stuff. You'd be a game master, you're helping with in-game stuff. So would you be interested? I'm like, yeah. So I did it, got into in-game, and they're like, hey, this project's coming up where we need you to work on this. And I'm like, I just kept applying for anything that they'd throw at me. And then finally they're like, hey, there's this big thing you're actually going to be in charge of. You're going to do some development, we'll help you with it. And that's where I basically got into development. And I thought it was weird because like, I really wanted to be an IT engineer, and somehow I'm in development. How did that happen? But no, I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was just weird because I just applied, went in the back door literally, and became a designer.
Huh. It's weird. Well, no.
Okay, I guess I will. Okay, I started out at Modesto Junior College, basically the hometown of George Lucas. The school he hates. And went through their computer program, and they had, at that time, one convention in almost 100 years, the Colossus Con, and I happened to be working on the Amiga. If anyone remembers what an Amiga is.
Fondly.
And I built a stop motion animation called Brandon Justice, about a space cowboy made from a Ken doll, Rocker Ken, who was fighting a space alien, which was from the Captain Power toy line, which was only a 12-inch doll versus a 3-inch doll. But they look the same size when you scan them in one at a time. You can scale. And so the guy, they had the game design, the art director of, he was at Visual Concepts at the time, working there, and his buddy who was working as an artist, and they saw my project and they go, wow, would you come in and go for an interview for this? I go, sure. I still needed 2 semesters at MJC to get my degree. And so I went and applied, and next thing I know, you're working in Visual Concepts, which then becomes amalgamated into electronic arts as time progresses. But then I started there, and then after a while, the art director, the guy left, and then I went over to Sega with him. And that's where pretty much I was most of the rest of the time, in the Sega CD department. If everyone remembers what a Sega CD is.
Again, fondly.
And that's basically it. I got the luxury of working next to the game testers, so I know their horror stories as well, which parallel your horror stories and your horror stories about playing stuff you don't like. And they go, their big thing is, if you want to be a game tester, you don't. If you love games, you'll learn to hate them so much. Because you got to make them crash over and over and over in the same spot. And if you can't get it to do it, you got to make it do it. You got to make it so then they can document it. And document it. Everything has to be documented. That when they get home, you never want to see another video game again.
You know what though? Every game tester that I know says that, and then goes home and plays video games. You know, at Nintendo, you get like this room of people who, by the end of the day, were so sick, and they're like dragging their way out of there. And sure enough, they'd stop in the lobby and play video games on their way out, and then go home and play.
Well, when you got Virtual Fighter in the front lobby where you can play for free, who wouldn't want to sit there and play stand-up? You know, it's like, that's my boss. What a beat him up.
Yeah.
That's what's the greatest thing about stand-up Street Fighter. You can walk to the liquor store, far away from the place, and that's my boss. That's the guy, that's the producer. And then you go, I feel so relieved. And you continue about your day with a smile.
My path in was really weird. I started as an actor. If you ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, I did that sort of stuff in Orlando and Seattle and Disney. And and I wrote, because honestly, that's not acting, it's writing. If you have to go up in front of like 200 people every night and make like 8 satisfying stories, believe me, they will let you know if you're doing a good job or a bad job. You get used to generating a lot of content. So I wrote a lot, did plays. One of my good friends and roommates also did, and wound up working at Nintendo, Rob Hyatt. He's one of their main localization editors now. And I was always just in awe, I'm like, Rob, you've got the coolest job. You know, these games come over from Japan, and they make no sense. And the translations they send make no sense. My very first day, I got this list of characters. They're supposed to tell you, you know, like, build a character profile for this person. And you can't see the game yet, so you don't know much about them. You know, you're supposed to invent a character, and ideally they'll tell you, you know, gender and race and age and, you know, things like that, and you sort of like, you try to get a good stable of characters to make this game satisfying. And on the very top of my list, there was a character, and they had only 3 words. Loneliness. Lonely wolf.
Oh my god.
And that was all. You know, so you're like, okay, I don't know how old this person is, or lone wolf is what you're trying to get across. Okay, we'll start with that. So anyway, he did that, and I did it briefly too, and I was sort of brought in for a weird reason. Because Nintendo knew they had a funniness problem. They got cute down pat, but you know, but they had this problem where they were, you know, funny as the natural sort of pair with cute, and they were not making their jokes hit, and they knew it. And the reason is they were being really safe. They didn't want to offend anybody. They, because they're corporate, they can't. And so Pirate, almost unbeknownst to me, was lobbying for me, because he even brought some of the Nintendo people to some of my shows. He was like, Gabe is funny. He can help us fix this. And so sure enough, when they expanded the department, I applied. And you know, was put there to sort of fill a comedy gap, but never got to, because then everything imploded. So there are other ways into the industry. Like if you have some weird specialization that for some reason they want, they might come get you. I did actually go to them, I mean, but you know, Pirate gave me the nudge. Which is the other lesson, know people in the industry, because they do, I mean, it helps. Book industry is the same way. I honestly think I got my agent when I went to a con, and like I've been talking with them online for almost 2 years. And when the day I finally met Eddie and sat down and had coffee with him, and you could just sense this wave of relief rolling off of him, like, oh good, you're not crazy. Okay, you know, like, you're an actual like sane person, I think we can deal. So it's in, you know, video game people know video game people, and they hire the video game people they know. So be one of those people they know. Go out where they hang and meet them. Is that bad advice? Or?
That's good supplemental advice. You also have to be good at something.
Yeah.
So, if you're an artist, then like make good art and put it online, and make a variety. My old roommate is an illustrator, and he kind of drew one style, and I'm like, bro, you're only applying for places that do that style. You need to have a variety, a nice calendar, or catalog, excuse me, of artwork. So that is also very helpful. The last 3 level designers we hired, I did not know them at all, but they had really good stuff. It was like, we can't deny this person has good stuff. We interview them, they talk a good game, they know what they're talking about. That's also part of it. Like, I don't think it matters what part of the game industry you want to go into. You still need to be able to talk games, because your designers appreciate when you can talk to an artist and say like, kind of like this game, or this game does this, and you want to kind of have that aspect and they can understand it is key. So keep
One of
playing
the other
games.
options are is you have the systems all in your queue. And then if you don't know what the hell they're talking about, go get it that day in the afternoon, load it up, play it, and then call them back in and go, is this what you wanted? And they'll go, yes. You guys can sit there in front of each other and go, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, can you do this? And you're going, that's awesome. You've got the systems all set up, you got everything set up, you're very professional now, it goes in your queue. That
Yeah.
helps out too.
Once again, a story from another industry, but the day I sold this series, I got a call from Titan Books, and we're on the phone talking about it, I really just read the stories at Parody, and Titan's on the phone saying, hey, yeah, we're buying 3, but we're interested in maybe the whole Holmes canon. Like, you have a plan for that, right? You could do all 60 stories. And you're like, yeah, like, absolutely. I really hope it goes that way. Success, success. Let's plan on that. Hang up the phone and like, oh God, honey, we're going to Barnes & Noble right now. I have so much reading to do. So yeah, do that work. Familiarize yourself with the canons you need to familiarize yourself with. Good to hear that you guys are hiring talent. That's refreshing.
Well, another piece, I guess, since I'm the game designer of the group who basically has been the multi-hat, one thing that I know a lot of studios will look at, please have a working demo. I mean, this is one thing that always irritated me when I was at Sony. It's like, you say that you are good with Unity, you say you're good with Unreal, but you have nothing to present. Okay, that's great and all, but if you don't have something that I can look at and say, hey, let me test this thing, let me look at your mechanics, let me look at your lighting, let me look at your texturing, let me look at something that I can physically do something with. Whether it's from an art portfolio to an actual working demo, whatever it may be, have something ready. Be prepared to present, because when you're trying to apply for a job in the industry, the big thing, yes, passion is huge. If you have a big gaming passion, that is the key. But if you have nothing to back that up, they're just going to look at you like, well, great, you have passion, but where's the product? I mean, you have this portfolio with like 2 pictures. What am I going to do with these? I mean, it's cool, but where's the beef at? Where's the meat? So if you're going in with the perception that you want a job in the game industry, dude, you better bring your A+ game. Because I'll tell you what, there's many people in the industry, whether past or present, that have been in your guys' shoes. Trust me, I've been there, where I basically was like, hey, I've got Sony on my resume, that should get the door open. That's not a guarantee. Even with the contacts I have in the industry, it took me years after I left Sony to even get anyone interested. Because it seems like once you leave the industry for like even a year, so much can change in a year. It's incredible. Because, I mean, a good example, I remember a day when City of Heroes was on top of the world.
Yeah.
Where's City of Heroes now, guys? It's gone. Okay? Well, another good example, did you guys ever see the game Motor City? Does anyone even remember that game?
I don't.
Okay, so you do remember EA's, attempt at Need for Speed Online, or MMO. Okay, so yeah, where's that game today? It doesn't exist because there's so much change in the industry. It happens like, I'd say, every 6 to 9 months roughly? Some new tech comes out, new software. I mean, think about it. Unity was not available 10 years ago, okay? Unreal was not available to the public. If it was available to the public, it's like, what, $5,000 just for the license? That's not including the server piece that you need for it. So if you think about it, so much has changed, even since I've left the industry, that even though it's somewhat relevant, but really if you're not on top of stuff, it's going to be hard to get back in. So my big thing that I tell everyone is like, look, contacts are great. If you know people in the industry, that's a good stepping stone. But have passion and have something that's viable, that is a good economic for that studio, and basically drive home the point, the reason why you're applying for that specific studio. So let's say you're applying in Blizzard, right? You're not going to mention like EverQuest, are you? You're going to say, hey, I play World of Warcraft, and here's the things I like about it. Or here's the thing that really gets me engaged about it. I mean, you're focusing on that studio because that's what you're applying. Does that make sense? All right.
I think this is a real good, if you want to do something artistic, like if you want to create, if you want to be a content creator, so does everybody. So yeah, do have something to show. Be a creator before someone hires you to be a creator. Like engage that thing that you love, practice it, get good on your own, have a body of work you can show. There's a saying from books and stuff, writers write. Doesn't matter if someone's paying you to do it or not, writers write. Go write something. And then when the day comes when someone says, hey, I'm interested in you, you know, you'll have something to show. And then the other thing, talk about playing to your industry. I keep giving out of industry advice, but here's how I got published. It's really hard when you're a writer and you're making content and stuff like, I hope someone buys this, I hope someone publishes, get it out there in front of the geeks, and you're always knocking on doors and basically saying, hi, I'm someone who says they're talented. Here's some stuff that if you want to read through as proof or not,